Hello! So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to understand a unit circle because this is a really big part of trig and pre-calc, so you're probably going to need to memorize it at some point. It can look pretty intimidating at first, but once you understand it, it's actually pretty easy. So first things first, just ignore this circle over here. Let me explain why it's called a unit circle. So if you had a coordinate plane right here, and this was a -1, this was a 1, this was a 1, and this is a -1, and you had a circle that connected all these points. So if you had a circle and it was going 1 unit to the right, 1 unit up, 1 unit left, and 1 unit down, that circle has a radius of 1. So the unit circle is a circle that has a radius of 1 in all directions, 1 unit. So now that you understand that, a unit circle also has coordinates. So looking at this circle over here, let's say that this was a point on the coordinate plane. Let's just say it was xy, right? Then x would be cosine, and y would be sine. So when you're looking at the coordinates on a unit circle, just know that it goes cosine, sine. Okay, so now let's take a look at this circle that I drew. Okay, so we have this circle here. I color coordinated it, or I tried to. So the axes, the y and x axis, are green, obviously. And then we have 2 blue lines in each section. So a circle is made up of 360 degrees, right? One circle is 360 degrees. And as you can see by the green lines, this is divided in 4 quarters. So you have this quarter right here, which is called quadrant 1. Then this quarter is quadrant 2. This is quadrant 3. And finally, this is quadrant 4. So just think of it in 4 parts. So now when you're thinking of the unit circle, you can think of it in terms of degrees. Like that's 360 degrees. Or you can think of it in terms of radians. So you need to know that 1 full loop around the circle is 2 pi radians, and you can abbreviate it as rad. So when you're looking at this, each of these areas is going to be a value, and it can be written as either degrees or radians. So let's start filling out the unit circle. So we're going to begin with this value right here on the x-axis, and this is going to be 0 degrees and 0 radians. Actually, let me write that above because it'll matter later on. So this is going to be 0 rad and 0 degrees because you haven't gone up yet at all, and you really haven't moved on the circle. So the next thing we're going to do is the blue line. So from here to here is going to be adding 30 degrees. And that's going to be true for every time you move from a blue line to another blue line. So this is going to be 30 degrees. And when you write that as radians, it's going to be the same as saying pi over 6 radians. So we're going to skip this orange line for now, and like I said before, you're going to add 30 degrees for every blue line you go up. So if it's 30 degrees here, then it's going to be 60 degrees here. And 60 degrees is the same as saying pi over 6, pi over 3 radians. And now, when you move another from the blue to the green, it's going to be adding another 30 degrees. you're always going to add 30 degrees unless it's this orange line in the middle of the two blue lines, which I'll explain in a minute. So when you move up 30 degrees, this is going to be 90 degrees. Because it kind of looks like a 90-degree angle if you think about it, right? Like if this was here, that was a right angle. So, and also you can think of it as 1/4 of 360 degrees is 1/4 of the circle, which is 90 degrees. And 90 degrees is the same as pi/2 rad. So now let's go back to the orange line right here. When you're between two blue lines, that orange line in the middle is going to be 15 degrees between them. So 30 degrees plus 15 degrees is going to be 45 degrees, which is the same as pi/4 rad. So now we have quadrant 1 filled out. And you can use these values in quadrant 1. You need to memorize these, but once you memorize these, you can use them to find the values of everything else in the circle. So let's try to do quadrant 2. So let's start again. This was 0 degrees. This was pi/6. If you need to, the orange lines are like their own thing, but you can put the blue lines and the green lines kind of together. So if this is pi/6, then this is 2 pi/6, which reduces down to pi/3. Then this would be 3 pi/6 right here, which is pi/2. Then this next one would be 4 pi/6. 4 pi/6 reduces to 2 pi/3. And that's also going to be 120 degrees because, like I said, you're adding 30 degrees each time. So skip the orange line again. If that was 4 pi/6, then this is going to be 5 pi/6. And if you're adding 30 degrees, it's going to be 150 degrees. And now you're going to add 30 degrees again, which is going to make this one 180 degrees. And if you had 5 pi/6 there, you're going to add another pi/6, which is 6 pi/6, which is just pi. And that makes sense because, like I said before, one full circle is 2 pi radians. So this is half a circle, and it's pi radians. So that makes sense. Now let's move on to the third quadrant. Continue filling out the blue lines. If you had 180 degrees here, you're going to add 30 degrees, making this 210 degrees. And if you had 6 pi/6, then this is going to become 7 pi/6. Next, add 30 degrees. This is going to become 240 degrees. And 8 pi/6. So 8 pi/6 reduces to 4 pi/3 radians. Next up, the green line, you're going to add another 30 degrees, which is 270 degrees. And if you took 3/4 of 360, that is 270. So if you had 8 pi/6, now you have 9 pi/6 here. And that's going to reduce to 3 pi/2. Next up, you're going to add another 30 degrees as usual, making it 300 degrees. And 9 pi/6 plus pi/6 is 10 pi/6, which is 5 pi/3. Skip the orange. Add 30 degrees. This is 330 degrees now, 330. And 10 pi/6 plus pi/6 is the same as 11 pi/6 radians. Now, once you get back to the 0 degrees, you're going to add 30 degrees again. So at the end of the circle, after you've gone one full loop, you get 360 degrees, which is the same as 12 pi/6 radians, which is just the same as 2 pi radians. So hopefully you can see that once you know this quadrant, you can kind of just add pi/6 each time to get some of the values. And now we're going to do the orange ones. And for the orange, it's basically the same thing. So if you had pi over 4 here, this is going to be pi over 4 plus pi over 4, which becomes 2 pi over 4, which reduces down to pi over 2. Next, you're going to add 3 pi over 4 to the next orange line. This is going to be 3 pi over 4. And to this, you're going to add 15 degrees, making it 135 degrees. Moving on, this one would be 4 pi over 4, which reduces just to pi. Next, this is going to be 5 pi over 4, and adding 15 to that, 225 degrees. Finally, this is going to become, this one would be the same as saying 6 pi over 4, which is also 3 pi over 2. And now you have 7 pi over 4 right here. And adding 15 to the one before it, this is going to be 315 degrees. So basically, all you need to know is this first quadrant. And once you know that, you're going to just add the same thing to every other area to get the other values. It might be a little bit confusing right now as well, but once you practice it a few times, it gets a lot easier. So now I'm going to erase this, and we're going to work on doing the coordinates. So obviously this is a coordinate plane, so every point, like right here, right here, right here, all of these points are going to have coordinates. So there's for this, it's basically the same. You need to know the first quadrant, and then you can get all the other ones. And these ones are a little bit easier because it's going to be the same coordinates every time, but you need to focus on sign changes. So in the first quadrant, right here, cosine and sine are going to be positive because the x values are going up and the y values are going up. In the second quadrant, the cosine is going to be negative and the sine is going to be positive because the y values are still going up, but the x values are going down. In the third quadrant, the sine and cosine are both going to be negative because the y values are going down and the x values are negative as well. They're going backwards. And then finally, in the fourth quadrant, the cosine is going to be positive and the sine is going to be negative because the y values are going down, but the x values are going to the right, so they're getting bigger. So let's start doing the first quadrant. So right here, this coordinate is going to be 1, 0 because you're going 1 unit to the right and you're not going up at all, so the y value is going to stay as 0. Next, let's actually do the axis values first. If you go to this one, you're going up 1, but you're not moving left or right. So the coordinate right here is going to be 0, 1, because you're moving up 1 y value and you're not moving left or right. Here, you're going to have a coordinate of -1, 0, because you're moving 1 unit to the left and not up at all, or down. And then for the 270 degrees, or 3 pi over 2 radians, this is going to be 0, -1, because you're moving 1 y value down, but you're not moving left or right. So those ones are pretty easy to understand if you can see it as a coordinate plane. So now let's move on to the quadrant 1. So all the values in quadrant 1 are going to be positive, like I said. So let's just see how it would be for the 30 degrees. So at 30 degrees, the coordinate is going to be root 3 over 2, comma 1/2. And these are just numbers that you kind of need to memorize because they're going to stay the same throughout the entire unit circle. So let's skip the orange as usual because these go hand in hand. The two blues go hand in hand. So the coordinate for 60 degrees is going to be the opposite of the 30 degree one. It's going to be 1/2, comma, radical 3 over 2. And finally, for the orange, this is really easy because the x and y value are going to be the same. It's going to be root 2 over 2, comma, root 2 over 2. So once you memorize these three coordinates, you can basically get everything else on the unit circle, but you just need to remember like the sign changes. So let's move on to here. And I like to remember a trick, or something that helps me remember, is if the cosine here is 1/2, and it's closest to the y-axis, then the other one closest to the y-axis, which is this 2 pi over 3 degrees, is also going to start with 1/2. However, if we look at the sign changes, we know that the cosine needs to be negative. So this is going to be a negative 1/2, and then again, root 3 over 2, because the sign value isn't turning negative because you're still going up for the y values. And this one is just going to be root 2 over 2 and root 2 over 2 with a sign change on the cosine. And this one is going to be a negative root 3 over 2 and a 1/2. So if you can see, these are a different color. This one here matches this one. This one matches this one. And this one matches this one. So they're kind of like symmetrical in a way. Moving on. If you know that the cosine is going to be 1/2 closer to the y-axis, then you know the cosine is going to be root 3 over 2 closest to the x-axis. And if you don't understand that, just like look at the unit circle again and like you'll see what I mean. I don't know how to explain it that good. So I'm going to write these in purple so that it's a little bit easier to see. So for the 210 degrees, it's closest to the x-axis. And for the third quadrant, x and y are going to be negative. So this is going to be negative root 3 over 2, negative 1/2. The orange is still going to be root 2 over 2, but it's going to be negative for both. And the 240 degrees is closest to the y-axis, so it's going to start with a 1/2, but it's going to be negative. And then again, this 300 degrees, or 5 pi over 3, is closest to the y-axis, so you're going to start with a 1/2, and that's going to be positive in the fourth quadrant, but the sign is going to be negative, so it's going to be negative root 3 over 2. The 7 pi over 4 and 315 degrees is going to still be root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2, but the sign is going to be negative. And finally, we have the 11 pi over 6. It's closest to the x-axis, so it's going to start with the root 3 over 2. It's going to be a negative 1/2. So basically, the three coordinates you need to know are the 1/2, root 3 over 2, and root 2 over 2. And you just need to know when to use them. And like obviously the 1s and 0s, but those are pretty easy to see because they're on the axes. So once you memorize the first quadrant completely with the coordinates and the radians and the degrees, then you can basically get everything else. So here I just drew another unit circle, and there's no like color. It's not color coded, so you can try to like practice if you know it. So let's do the first quadrant together, and you can pause the video if you want to try to do it on your own. So starting with degrees and radians, I'm going to do this in blue. This is going to be 0 degrees, 0 radians. This is going to be 30 degrees, pi over 6 radians, 45 degrees, pi over 4, and finally, 60 degrees, which is pi over 3. And now let's do the coordinates. Let's do, I'm going to pick a new color. Let's do yellow. For the coordinates, this is just going to be 1, 0, because you're going 1 to the right and not up or down at all. And this is going to be root 3 over 2, comma 1/2. Make sure you pay attention to the negatives and positives. This is quadrant 1, so it's all going to be positive. This is going to be root 2 over 2 for x and y values. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to be a 2. And let me move up. This is going to be 1/2, comma, root 3 over 2. And I forgot to do the 90 degrees, but this is going to be 90 degrees, or pi over 2. And its coordinate is going to be 0, 1, because the x value isn't changing. It's going to be at 0 if this is the origin, and it's going 1 up. So now let's move on to the second quadrant. Pause the video and try to see if you can figure it out now that you have the first quadrant, if you couldn't before. So let's just move on and see if you got it right, if you tried it. So adding 30 degrees is going to give you 120 degrees, which is the same as 2 pi over 3 once you reduced it. And let's skip the middle. This is going to be 150 degrees, which is 5 pi over 6, because you can't reduce that. And then the middle value is going to be 135 degrees, or 3 pi over 4 radians, because you're adding pi over 4s. So now let's do the coordinates for each of these. This 120 degrees is closest to the y-axis, so it's going to start with 1/2. But if you remember, it's going to be a negative 1/2, because cosine is negative in the second quadrant. But otherwise, it's going to be the same, other than the sign changes, negatives and positives. Then this is just going to be the root 2 over 2 with the negative in front. And this is going to be negative root 3 over 2, comma 1/2. Moving on to the third quadrant, we know this is going to be 180 degrees and pi radians, because it's half of the circle, and 1 full circle is 2 pi, so this has to be just pi. Adding 30 degrees, we got 210 degrees, and 7 pi over 6 radians, because this would have been 6 pi over 6. Skip the middle, add 30 degrees, this is 240 degrees, which is 8 pi over 6, which is 4 pi over 3. And then let's do the middle value, add 15 degrees, which is 225 degrees, and this is going to be 5 pi over 4, because the pi right there was 4 pi over 4. Let's do the coordinates. Okay. So doing the coordinates, this is going to be negative 1, 0, moving left 1, and not up or down. This one is going to be negative root 3 over 2, negative 1/2, because remember, in the third quadrant, x and y are negative, or you could say sine and cosine are both negative. This one is just going to be negative root 2 over 2, negative root 2 over 2, and then this one is going to be, since it's closest to the y-axis, it's going to start with a 1/2, so it's going to be that. Now, lastly, almost done. Let's do this. This is 270 degrees. It's 3/4 of the circle, or you could say you added 30 degrees to the 240. And that's the same as saying 3 pi over 2 radians, because this was 4 pi over 3, which is the same as 8 pi over 6. Adding pi over 6, that makes it 9 pi over 6, which reduces to 3 pi over 2. Adding 30 degrees to that, you get 300 degrees. So this was 9 pi over 6, this is going to be 10 pi over 6, which is 5 pi over 3. Adding 30 degrees, 330 degrees, and 11 pi over 6. And then, once you do one full circle, this is going to be 360 degrees and 2 pi, because it's going to be pi over 12, which is 2 pi. And then, doing the middle one, add 15 degrees, so this is 315 degrees, 7 pi. Oh, I don't know what happened there. 7 pi over 4. Let me just erase that. My hand went on it. Okay, now let's do the coordinates. 270 is pretty easy. You're going down 1 and not left or right, so that's the coordinate. 0, negative 1. 300 degrees is closest to the y-axis, and it's going to be symmetrical to this one. So it's going to start with a negative 1/2, positive 1/2, because in the fourth quadrant, cosine, or the x value, is going to be positive. And a negative sine value, negative, and you get that. Then here, you have root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2, but this one, the y value, is going to be negative. Here, you get root 3 over 2, negative 1/2, and then this right here is going to have the same coordinate because it's in the same place, but this represents the beginning of the circle, and this represents the end of the circle. So it's like two different things, but the coordinate is the same because they're in the same place. So I hope that helped. This is the full circle. I hope that helped you guys. Thank you for watching.